Sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and could even keep you from the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS. Welcome to the No BS Sales School podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. I want to talk about something today that may be TMI, maybe too much information. If you don't want to hear about mental health, mental illness, ADHD, and its countersign or its counter other side, which is depression, then go ahead and hang up now. But if this is something you wonder about, or maybe you got a friend that has this, or maybe even you. So a little bit of my journey. In probably 18 years ago, I was having lunch with a friend of mine who is a child psychiatrist. And he's somebody I grew up with for, forever and ever and ever. Went to school together since first grade. He was telling me that he started to go into the practice of treating adults with ADHD. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, it's funny. He goes, I realized I had it. And so I started treating myself and things got better and I got really interested in it. So I started helping other people. I said, what is ADHD? And he said, it's kind of when your mind races a lot and you can't settle down. It's kind of one thing, then another and another. And he said, it impacts people different ways, but usually it means that you kind of are all over the place, kind of a mess. And I was like, oh, like me? And he said, well, yeah, like you. Shit. Okay. So I looked it up, did some research, and I was like, you know what? I need to go talk to him. And so he talked me through and he put me on, I did an assessment kind of deal, a test. And he said, what you don't want your doctor to say when they get your test results. Holy shit is what he said. Oh, what does that mean? He goes, man, you are a mess. He said, you've got zero executive function. I said, I don't know what that means, but I think you're probably right. So he put me on some medicine and immediately, like the first day, all of a sudden I was like, locked in. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I could focus on things. I would remember things so much better than before. It was great. And then anyway, I figured out after a couple weeks in, it really, at the end of the day, it left me feeling just cranky as shit. But during the day, I was fine. So when I was away from my family, I was doing great. When I got back home again, I was a cranky asshole. And so he put me on a different kind of medicine that lasted a little bit longer, and that made it a little bit better. And over the years, I've tried a bunch of different ADHD medications. And I finally found one called Adzenys, which is long acting. It releases a little bit all day long. And it's the best one I've worked with. I've been on it for probably 10 years. So if you are on ADHD medicine now, but it doesn't make you feel good, or you feel cranky at night, or it drops you pretty quickly, go back to your doctor and say, can we try something else? Because there are lots of things out there. Just have these open communications with your doctor. If your ADHD medicine doesn't make you feel good, it's probably not the right medicine. And there are lots of things they can try. And there are lots of different versions of it and things like that. So go out and tell your doctor you want to try something else. The other side of ADHD is, and it happens to almost everybody, is depression. And sometimes when you kind of get your ADHD under control, that's when depression and anxiety kind of rears its ugly head. It certainly did for me. Probably 3 to 6 months later, I started feeling like shit. And I wasn't like going to kill myself. It wasn't like I couldn't get out of the bed, but I just felt down and depressed. And so I went back to my doctor and said, man, I've had this thing, going on. And he said, well, sometimes when we address ADHD, the depression comes out and anxiety as well, which means that you're nervous and everything kind of makes you just feel jumpy or nervousness, or you're worried about things that maybe you should or maybe you shouldn't be worried about. And once he kind of pointed that out, I realized I probably had that all of my life. The only brain I've ever lived in is my own. I didn't know that wasn't normal. And I used to treat it with alcohol and other fun things, myself, not even understanding what I was doing, but I was self-medicating with other shit that wasn't as good for me. So he put me on some depression meds. And it took about 6 weeks, and I started feeling better. And then over time, either, I don't know what it was, maybe I was putting on weight, which it can do, or maybe it just wasn't working, or I still have depressive bouts. So they put me in another depression medicine. And that went on for like 10 years. So 10 years I was on depression meds and ADHD meds, but I found that the depression meds didn't work consistently. But again, I didn't know what to expect. So I decided to get a second opinion from another doctor. This is something I've never shared in public, but I went to go meet this doctor and I was really impressed with her. And as I told her my situation, she said, "I don't think you have depression." I was like, "Then why am I crying in your office right now? What the hell is going on?" And she said, "Well, you've been on depression meds for 10 years and they haven't really helped you, have they?" And I was like, "I guess not." And she said, "If you're taking depression meds and you're taking the right dose, which it appears you are, you shouldn't have these depressive bouts like you have." I was like, "Okay." And she asked me some more questions, like, what are you really into? I was like, you know what? When I get into something, I go all in, right? So I was started drinking bourbon, and all of a sudden I was like, hell yes, I want to know all about bourbon. And I bought 50 different kinds of bourbon. Or if I was, hunting, I was like, oh shit, let's go. And I bought, 5 guns and 1,000 rounds of ammo, just all in, go. And she said, "What you have, I believe, is something you're not going to like the name of." I said, "Okay, what is it?" She said, "Bipolar type 2. I said, "I really don't like the name of that. What the hell is bipolar type 2? She said, "Well, you know how bipolar people have this thing where they have this mania where they get so up, and a lot of times it was really severe. They run down the street, ripping their clothes off, screaming how great things are, right? And then they have these horrible depressive bouts where they can move out and sleep under a bridge." She said, "You are lucky." She said, "You just get the depression part of that. You get a little bit of the mania stuff when you get excited about shit, right? But you have all of the depressive side of this." And she said, "The good news is there's a treatment for that." I was like, "Really?" And she said, "Yep." She said, "Let's get you off the depression meds." And she said, "You'll know within a month of taking these different medicines if what you have is bipolar type 2. I was like, "Okay, let's go." So she gave me something called Lamictal, which is, or Lamotrigine, which is a medicine that's been around forever and ever and ever. I think they treat seizures or people that have seizures with it, but it's also found to be a good thing for bipolar type 2. And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it. I'll not try anything. This sucks," right? And so she said, "You'll know within a month." I was like, "Okay." And I took it the next morning and I felt different the next morning after one dose. And by the end of the week, I was like, shit, I feel so much better. Like I hadn't felt in a long time, like I'd forgotten what normal felt like. And by the end of the month, and I checked in with her every week, end of the month, I was like, I don't like the sound of bipolar type 2, but I sure as shit like the way I feel now. And so over time, we've adjusted medicines, we've switched medicines and all this kind of stuff. But I guess I tell you all this to know that what I hope is maybe you know somebody with ADHD and maybe you ought to check in with them. And maybe if they're having tough times and they're having depression issues or anxiety issues, that maybe they're just used to. Maybe they just didn't know that could be better, didn't know there's something better out there. Maybe ask them when the last time they checked with their doctor to find out more. Now, understand I sound like I'm a pill pusher. I'm not a pill pusher. I don't love pills unless they're doing something that works. And let me tell you, the medicine that I've been taking for my ADHD has really helped me focus, right? And it hasn't hurt my personality, it hasn't taken away my personality, none of that stuff. It's helped me focus, it's helped me be a better version of me. I love it, right? When I don't take it, I feel kind of shitty. So If you're taking ADHD medicine and you don't feel good on it or it doesn't make you feel good, go back to your doctor and say, you need to try something else. They've already said that. Same thing with your depression meds. If you're still getting depressed, you are anxious, you're worried about shit over and over and over again, maybe you don't have depression. Maybe you have something like what I have. My doctor says it's fairly common for people with ADHD like I do to have bipolar type 2 that goes undiagnosed. So I was talking with one of my clients the other day, and they were talking about an employee they had who told them that they were depressed. And he said, and I'm afraid they're going to tell me they're going to go on depression medicine. I said, tell me why you're afraid of that. He said, well, I don't know. I said, hey, man, I've been on meds for a long time, and it's made me a much better person. If you're worried about them being on depression meds, you should be more worried about them not being on depression meds, right? This is how they can live a healthier life. Now, do your own discernment. If it doesn't make you feel better, if you're not getting better, either slowly wean yourself off of it, try it again, try it with nothing, or go back to your doctor and say, can we try something that doesn't cause this or doesn't give this side effect? Weight gain, weight loss, lack of sleep, whatever, can be any of those things. What I'm taking now doesn't cause weight gain, makes me feel good all day long. It's made me a better person, more patient, and I can be happier. And when I come home at the end of the day, I'm glad to see my family. I'm glad to engage, which hasn't always been the case. So I've shared with you my dirty laundry. I'm crazy. I take medicine. And you know what? If you need medicine, you should take it too. Go talk to your psych. Here's the thing about that. Your doctor, your general practitioner who may have given you one thing or another, they treat everything from, stomach problems to toenail fungus, right? And they've got a toolbox with about 1,000 tools in it to fix any number of things that come up. But with ADHD or depression, they've got 1 or 2 tools. So if you want to get something specified for you, get an appointment with the psychiatrist. There are people probably nearby that are ADHD specialists. That's fine. You can also just go to a general psychiatrist. Tell them what's going on. Let them ask you questions. If there's a diagnosis, if there's some kind of testing you do that. But just know that if you go to a psychiatrist, they've got lots of tools just for what you have and lots of options. Don't give up. You're going to be fine. If you decide to take the medicine and it helps you, good for you. If it's not the right thing for you, I understand that too. Self-medication, self-medicating may not be your healthiest bet. I'm Walker McKay with No BS Sales. Share this with somebody else that needs to hear it. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the No BS Sales School podcast. If you're struggling to close deals, then I want to invite you to take my free mini course where you'll learn the 7 most expensive sales mistakes that will cost you time, money, and credibility. So be sure to click the link in the show notes or go to www.7salesmistakes.com. That's the number 7salesmistakes.com. Thanks again for listening to the No BS Sales School podcast.